and advice. And I wrote down what I was going to say to you guys as we lost communication. But what I was going to tell y'all was that the best advice is given in patience, and the worst advice is given in haste. So, again, if someone is coming to you and there's just a lot going on and you really can't answer them now because of the things that are going on, tell them, let's talk about it later. Tell them, I hear you. I hear you. Frank, look at Roxanne. And Roxanne, say something to Frank, anything. Frank.
I'm expecting to cheeseburger.
Frank. Now let's try this again. Roxanne, tell something to Frank, and Frank, your response needs to be, I hear you. Try it.
Honey, the cops are out front.
I hear you. That's been too much of a theme this past week, so that's not good.
Roxana, when Frank said, I hear you, what did that do to you instantaneously? What was that feeling?
That he heard me, I'm reassured that he understands and hears me speaking to him.
George, say something to Linnell.
Linnell, I'm happy you're here.
Linnell, respond to George, I hear you.
I hear you.
What does that do for you, George, when you hear that?
Makes me happy you're listening to me.
That's all it takes. Roxana said she feels understood. She feels acknowledged. George says he feels happy that he's listening to him. That really is right there. You can be no more direct to a person trying to tell you something or trying to seek advice from you than simply saying the words, I hear you. And it's not, I hear you. It's, I hear you. And the next words after that is, can we talk at 8 o'clock tonight? Can we get together later? I really want to listen to you. I really want to talk. But I need it to be under better circumstances. And explain that to the person. Linnell, if you were coming to me and you were telling me a problem, would you feel acknowledged? Would you feel understood if I was half-assed listening to you because my mind was somewhere else? And you know, you can catch somebody when they're doing that because they'll ask you, I'm sorry, what were you saying? I'm sorry, say that again. Look at me, Frank, look at me. Okay, and so if you don't have the time to listen right then and there, utilize that practice. Okay, so let's continue moving forward. Because they're always ready to listen, their actions are determined by an authority other than themselves. Okay, and that's your higher power. As soon as the community has a need, they are ready to meet it in humble submission. Okay? You are the community. Each one of you are a community to each other. You can substitute community as brother and sister. So as soon as brothers and sisters have a need, they're ready to meet it in humble submission. Okay? In this way, the sharing of the need by one member and the meeting of it by another happen as if they were a single act. There is a reason. Yes, sir. Linnell, go ahead.
I'm sorry. During this lesson now, we were talking about this. I'm a little bit rusty on my Bible studies. It's being used, but when you're talking about this, I picture Miriam from the Bible. Because she was a prophetess and she was there for her community and she was definitely there for her brother. if I remember right, she followed God, like without waver. She was humble. She had humility, and she listened to everyone. And that's why I keep picturing. It's like every time we're talking about this, I picture Miriam, like because is what she was. She was there for her community. She was definitely there for her brother, and yeah.
And that's what you have to be. Okay? The next line after that, listen to what Linnell had said, but it is love that compels good listeners in their pursuit of real life. It's love that compels us. We genuinely love people. We genuinely love to help others. We genuinely love to listen to people. When people come to you, do you instantaneously just want to listen, even if you don't have the time? How many people feel that way when someone comes to you? You really do want to listen to them. It might just be that you don't have the time. That's because it's in you. It is genuine inside of you, okay? This is why they're always eager to follow the way about which our Lord said, narrow is the road that leads to life. Matthew 7:14. They don't live by their own best judgments, listening to other people they like and doing the things that seem best to them. I want you guys to really pay attention to this line, okay? Because I'm going to ask for you, one of y'all, to interpret. They don't live by their own best judgments, listening to the people they like and doing the things that seem best to them. Frank, the line, they don't live by their own best judgments, listening to the people they like. Can you explain that to us a little bit? Oh, hold on, you're muted. Okay, go ahead.
I think it's kind of saying that they don't center on their own mind. They in what's in their own head. They're listening more to the people coming to them and trying to step into their situation when they answer that, or when they when they're trying to listen from that point of view. They're trying to set into that situation to understand it fully.
Very good explanation. I want you guys also to keep this in mind. Listening to the people they like. Many times, can you guys hear me? Okay, y'all were just really getting close to the screen to listen. Listen to this. Listening to the people they like. How many times have I told you in the past that sometimes your enemies may come to you for advice? Right? You don't just have to say, it has happened several times. I myself have had to check myself in saying, oh, this person is so annoying every time they come to me. Listen to that person. That person is coming to you. We don't get to choose and pick who we're going to listen to. The person who needs the listener chooses and picks who they want to speak to. This is a divine act happening right now. It's not just by chance. It's paired. That person, even though maybe they may be annoying to you, or maybe you don't like the way they talk, you don't like how they present themselves, there's something of the flesh that you don't like, still listen to that individual. Don't pick and choose who you want to listen to. Alright? And then the second part. And doing the things that seem best to them. What does that mean? Anybody? Listen. I'm going to read the whole sentence and then pay attention to that last bit. They don't live by their own best judgments, listening to the people they like and doing the things that seem best to them. Anyone? George.
You may have to go past what you think is right and go with higher intuition and
try to give the person what feels best, not to you, but to everything else.
Yeah.
That can be very hard to put aside this for this.
Yeah. And sometimes we feel also that we know the answer. Don't be quick to give somebody an answer. If somebody brings you a problem and you go, aha, this is the answer. Don't do that. Again, remember what I told you. The best advice is the one given in patience, not the one given in haste. Even if you think it is the best answer, sit back and reflect on it. Meditate on it a little bit. Okay? Second line. Instead, as George said, instead, they let the wisdom of a community and its leadership shape their decision. Okay? So, pretty much is you, who are the person giving the advice, who do you allow to speak through you? You allow the Spirit to speak through you. Okay? You allow your inner wisdom to speak through you. Remove the flesh. Many times we want to give advice because we've lived through that situation ourselves. We say, oh yeah, I've been there. Oh yeah, I understand. Oh man, I know exactly what you're going through. That happened to me way back when, and this is how I dealt with it. Every situation, though it may be similar to something that you experienced in your life, is not the same experience as the one that you had in your life. George may have a situation that is very similar to Linnell's situation, but they're not the same. Linnell's situation is his and his alone. George's was his and his alone. Now, George may share with Linnell, yes, this happened to me also in my life. Yes, this is what I experienced and this is how I dealt with it. However, it's not the answer to Linnell's problem. Linnell has to comprehend and understand in that situation that he is not alone. That's what he gets out of that. And so that would be what you would express to that individual. So George will express to Linnell, hey man, you're not alone. This problem happened to me. It happens to other people. You would turn it around and say, how do you think you're going to deal with this? How do you think you're going to handle this? How are you going to move forward? You know? Let Linnell make the decision. He's a grown individual. He is an adult. He can think for himself. That's the problem a lot of times with people who give advice, especially spiritual leaders. Spiritual leaders begin to think that they are saints. They know all the answers. They can help anyone in need. We are only meant to be listeners. Everyone has to figure out the situation for themselves. What we do is we support them in their decision, and if they're straying off a little bit to do something that maybe is going to harm them, maybe you point that out. Maybe George says, you know, Linnell, I was listening to your solution to the problem, and have you maybe considered how that's going to affect you, how that's going to affect this person, how that's going to affect the situation? That's good advice. How many people here have experienced someone who you take them your problem, and then they immediately give you advice, and then you take their advice or you take their solution to the problem, and it did not turn out that way? Yep. That's happened here, except for George. No, I'm kidding. Okay, so, yes, sir. Linnell, go ahead.
No, it's gonna be. I want to say is it's basically like, for example, it's like giving the same person the same prescription. Yes, the person may have the symptoms for a cold, or the person may have the symptoms for pneumonia, but the person is different. Even like the spiritual health basis. It also goes for our spiritual life as well. You give this person this bag, okay, this type of bag or this type of bag that you give this person, a motor bag is not going to be the same for this person. Everybody is different. different energies, different symptoms with the body, different everything. No one person has the same thing, so it's basically like being a regular doctor. So, okay, you automatically jump and say this person has rabies, but they may not have that rabies. So this is going to say that person could die from something else because you automatically assumed and jumped and gave this advice, and it's not exactly what it was.
Exactly. Now listen, to expand on that a little bit more, let's talk about that in the nature of doctors. I'm the doctor, and you four are the patient. Each one of you is dealing with the same situation. Let's say the situation is finances, okay? We get that one a lot. It's a daily problem. But each one of you is not dealing with the same situation in finances. Frank may tell me one thing. Roxana may tell me another thing. Linnell may tell me one, and George may tell me one. It's not as simple as put the, here's a conjure hand that I'm preparing for someone. It's not as simple as taking this one and the same thing and prescribing it to each one of you and expecting it to do the same thing. Now, as practitioners, you can make a general item. Maybe this one is for general luck, and I give each one of you one for general luck. But to make this product more effective, to make this conjure hand more powerful, I have to listen to Linnell, figure out what the problem is in finances, let him tell me, and instead of giving him advice, asking questions like, well, how are you doing with your money? How are you saving your money? Where are you spending your money? Where do you see your money going? Are you implementing a savings plan? Are you doing this? Are you doing that? How much money are you making? Everyone is different, right? And you listen to these problems and you don't give the advice, but you help out through a diagnosis. If I listen to Frank and Frank tells me another issue, I'll say, okay, and it's okay to go back in your mind and think of things that worked for other people in similar situations. Just as Linnell was saying, the medication may start off the same, but it may develop somewhere else. Everybody here knows how doctors prescribe psych medications, right? They give you a dosage, and then they say, take this for a little bit, and come back and tell me how it works. The person can say, doctor, it didn't work, or it can say, doctor, it worked too well. And the doctor will have to find a medium. The doctor will say, well, maybe we need to up your dosage, or maybe we need to decrease your dosage. Or even the doctor may say, that's not the medication for you. We need to try another medication. Okay? This is a practice that goes along with listening. If you're going to be a good conjure doctor, you have to let your patients know that yes, you're trying to help them, but it's not going to be fixed like that. Our problems in our lives, the problems that people talk to you about and tell you, they're not quick fixes. If they were, the world would operate completely different. Okay? There are things that take time. If it is a matter of finances, you have to speak with that person, help them to gain their bearings, help them to gain finances. If it's a matter of love, what are we looking at here? That's a very big one. I have a lot of people who come to me and tell me about love. I'm lonely. I'm depressed. Nobody wants me. Nobody wants to go out with me. No, well, damn, nobody wants to go out with a sad Sally, you know? And I don't want to tell them that, but sometimes I ask people. I really do ask them. I ask them this one question. How do you view yourself? Do you see yourself as beautiful? Do you see yourself as intelligent? Do you see yourself as personable, as attractive, as this? And do you know those people who don't find somebody, do you know what their answers are? No. Do you find yourself attractive? No. Do you find yourself personable? No. Do you find yourself... No. And that's then where you have to begin the work, is making that person see themselves as attractive, see themselves as desirable, as they have to raise their self-esteem. And that doesn't happen overnight. It really does not. It would be so easy if it would be a wonderful life if it was just as easy for us to prepare a candle and say, here you go, burn this, and you're going to find true love tomorrow. No. The candles, though, and the different workings can be used as affirmations for these people. Remind them every time you see this candle as it burns. Remind yourself how beautiful you are. Remind yourself how unique you are, just like that flame. Write it on your mirrors. I am beautiful. Tell yourself in the mirror, I am beautiful. Even to the point of asking yourself, we live in a very physical and material world. Okay? This is fact. This is truth. Asking that person, what can you do to make yourself more beautiful? To make yourself more attractive? What is it? Is it putting makeup on? Is it brushing our hair? Is it brushing our teeth? Sometimes, a lot of times, we have to ask people, well, consider your hygiene. Are you clean? Do you smell good? There are several people out there who go, I'm just going to be myself and somebody will have to love me for who I am and take me like that. Well, even nature says that the peacock has to get out there and ruffle his feathers to attract his mate, right? We see that with birds, we see that with lions, we see that with all of the animals. They get out there and they puff up their chest, they show off their colors, they do everything they can to find that mate. And then after they find that mate, then you can fart in bed, then you can pick your nose, then you can eat with your mouth full. You can do all of these things, right? Because once we've gotten past the flesh, then we've gotten into the love, right? Everybody's laughing because it's true. So these are the things that we consider when we listen. Okay, we listen to the individual's dilemma. We listen to the things that they're saying, and we're not so quick into giving them the advice. Remember, again, not all of us are the same. Not all situations are the same, and not everything that we prescribe will not be the same. It will all be different, but we cannot prescribe unless we first listen. Now, let me get through this. Make this saying your mantra. I have not come to do my own will, but the will of the one who sent me. Okay? So the paragraph starts off, this is, after all, why they live in Christian community. You all are a conjure community. If they have made this way of life their choice, listen, each one of you here has made this way of life your choice. You made that choice when you applied for this class. You made this choice when you started practicing with candles, when you started getting into the ATRs and the LTRs, when you started working with orishas, in hoodoo, in voodoo, in santeria, ifa, whatever the practice may be, you made the choice. Even if we were knocked on by the spirit on our head, whichever one it may be, Loa, Orisha, ancestor, whatever, spirit animal, so forth and so forth, you're not forced to listen. You made the choice to listen to that spirit. You made the choice to be in this community. And as the saying goes, and as this paragraph goes, if they have made this way of life their choice, they will also make this saying of our Lord their mantra. Again, that mantra is, I have not come to do my own will, but the will of the one who sent me. That is John 6:38, for those of you who want to reference it. Again, John 6:38. I have not come to do my own will, but the will of the one who sent me. Christ made that statement. This is your mantra. maybe let's say, for example, I don't know if this is true or not. I'm just throwing this out here. George says, Oshun called me, right? And so I'm going to walk in this way. George made that choice, all right, and he's not going to do his will, but of the one that sent him, and the will of Oshun, right? You follow the will of your spirit, of your Orisha, of your Lawa, whichever one it was that called you, okay? Now, but there is a word of caution, okay? And this is the word of caution. Good listening only pleases God and builds up a community when we do what we're asked without rolling our eyes or dragging our feet. Again, good listening only pleases God and builds up a community when we do what we're asked without rolling our eyes or dragging our feet. Half-hearted obedience won't cut it. Even if we end up doing what we were asked to do at first, the key is to see that when we listen to our sisters and brothers, we're listening to Jesus, who said himself, "Whoever listens to you, listens to me." And then, we're not only to listen, but also to listen gladly, for God loves a cheerful giver. Okay? Let's expand on this just for a little bit. The word of caution. Good listening only pleases God and builds up a community when we do what we're asked without rolling our eyes or dragging our feet. Anybody care to give an explanation? Let me share with you a little bit. Good listening only pleases God and builds up a community when we do what we're asked without rolling our eyes or dragging our feet. That means when someone comes to you, you listen to them. You don't, hurry up, tell me what your need is. Andale, I've got shit to do. I'm busy. What's your problem? What's your issue? Okay? Then that person feels rushed. Then they feel like you really don't want to listen to them, and they just tell you your problem because, they feel, oh my God, well, let me tell them, right? And then the second part, or dragging our feet. If I tell Roxana, can we meet at 8 o'clock? I don't want to tell Roxana, hi, Roxana, I said we would meet at 8 o'clock, but maybe we can talk tomorrow. I'm really busy tonight. Maybe we can talk the next day. I'm really busy. And then it always goes and goes and goes. Again, remember, the problem may not be big to you, but the problem may be really big to that person. They're reaching out to you for a reason. What will happen if you keep pushing someone off to the side is they will find someone else to listen to. It is written in the good book, right, that if we don't lift our voices up to the heavens and give praise to the one above, the rocks will, right? It says, if you don't praise me, that's fine. The rocks will praise me in your place. Take that to say this. If I don't listen to you, eventually Roxana will find someone else who will listen to her, right? Yes, she will. You will find somebody who listens to you. But, my friends, this is why it is very important that we do take time to acknowledge people. There are people who are hurting. There are people who are in trouble inside, and they need you to acknowledge them. And if it's not right now, then soon. Don't be the person on the other side that it was too late. Okay? It was too late to listen to this individual, and they are no longer here. Point in case, very sad story. I have two friends, okay? One of them, very busy, going on about his life, trying to take care of things, for himself, for his family, for whatever. And another friend reached out to that person. I need to speak with you. I need to speak with you. I need to speak with you. And the other person, maybe tomorrow, later, tomorrow, later, tomorrow. Tomorrow never came for one of them. You see? Not what's going on. I have 15 minutes. I have 5 minutes. What's going on? I have 2 minutes. What's going on? I have 1 minute. What's going on? The smallest amount of time that we allot to somebody in need, for them, is like a multitude of time that you just gave them. It may be 30 seconds to you. It could feel like an hour for that person. Remember, the person coming to you in need is coming to you for a reason. Give them the time. Again, remember, it's very safe to say, I hear you. Can we talk about this just a little later? Okay? So, half-hearted obedience won't cut it, okay? Even if we end up doing what we were asked to do at first. The key is to see that when we listen to our sisters and brothers, we're listening, okay? So, I'm going to finish up this chapter by reading the last bit. If a community member listens grudgingly, complaining to someone as they're doing what they were asked to do, or even grumbling to themselves, this is not good. Who surely hears this can't please God, who surely hears everything. Their service isn't any good to them or to anyone else unless they change their whole approach. Grumbling and complaining will ruin them. Okay? So, what are you going to do when you listen? Anyone?
Listen with respect.
Yes. Anyone else?
I first said listen, and let them know that I'm listening. Like, I won't grumble, I won't mumble. I'll say, I'm listening, you have my time. Or I say, okay, you have 10 minutes for you. Let's talk it out, let's see what's going on.
George.
Have empathy and openness, and don't judge them.
That last part again. Don't judge them. Roxana, what are you going to do when you listen?
Listen with an open heart.
Very good. So did I beat listening into you guys enough? Everybody said, yes, I want to stop listening to you now. Go ahead, Frank. Yes. Yes. Go ahead.
What happens when you give that person the time and it's never enough, or they continually come back for the same thing over and over and over and over, like Frank comes to Oscar for the same thing over and over and over? Because I have a few people in my life that come to me for the same thing, and I do know that when I give them a little bit of time, it does help them. But it seems like no matter how much time is never enough. What do you do in that case?
And that's gonna happen from time to time. You know, there are gonna be several people who just want to talk. They just need someone to listen. They're not necessarily looking for advice. They just don't want to talk to the wall. They don't want to talk to themselves. They just want someone who will honestly listen to them, even if not giving advice. Now, for the person who continues to return, and if you guys remember, we spoke about this early on in our courses. I will give you advice once. I will give you advice twice. If you don't take it by the third time, I'm not going to waste my breath with you anymore. And I have been very straight up and forward with several of my patients about that, in saying, why are you coming to me? You're asking the advice and I keep giving you the same advice and you don't take it. So don't come to me until you take my advice. It's very insulting to me that, just a second, George. It's very insulting to me that if I give you the advice and you don't take it, you keep coming back for the same problem. Yes, George.
Okay, this leads me to another question. If someone comes to you and wants advice, and you're sensing that something's off, let's say they might be mentally ill, how do you, I can understand being respectful and I can understand being kind, but sometimes you try to give someone advice and you just realize you're not talking to someone who's going to take it positively or in a way that's going to do well for them. They might have a completely different skewed perspective due to something wrong with them.
There are ways to identify basic mental illnesses in people, and I would encourage you guys to try to do some learning in this, getting involved with some of that. You will have, can you hear me? Okay. You will have a lot of people who, you will have, I'm not going to say a lot of people. Me personally, I have had people who come to me in those situations like that with George, and the first thing I'll think of, and the Spirit will tell you, you'll feel it in your heart, you'll feel it in your gut, something isn't right here. Okay? It may not necessarily be mental health, but it may be that that person isn't telling you 100% of the truth. It may be that that person is only giving you one side of the story. Okay? And how do you deal with that? Let's say the person is delusional. That's one of the first ones that I get. Okay? The person may come and say, for example, and I'm trying to think real hard because I don't want to give too much information about any of the people that I see. But the person may come to you and tell you, this is going on right now in my life, and it's chaotic, and it's this, and it's curses, and it's spirits, and it's blah blah blah, and whatever, and it could be 100% all in their head. Don't be afraid to tell that person, have you sought mental treatment? Have you gone to talk to a counselor? Because we're not counselors. We're spiritual leaders. We deal with the spirit. We deal with this world. When it comes to this, it's a completely different environment. Who here has taken psychology or courses? Completely different in the mind than it is in the spirit, is it not? The situations that we deal with. Completely. Okay? We're not counselors. We're not psychologists. We're not doctors of the mind. We're doctors of the spirit. We're here to help the person's spirit. And if you feel that it's not a spiritual problem, it's not a situation that you can handle on that realm, refer it to another. There are doctors that I know because of my profession who I have recommended people to in saying, man, you know what? You got some very serious issues going on. And I'll never tell them, I think you might be schizophrenic. I think you might be bipolar. And that's the one that I get a lot. A lot of bipolar people. They're very depressed right now. Then they're happy tomorrow. And you'll see that as you work with people. Somebody may come to you and say, oh, all these bad things are happening in my life and I need help. And then you try to help them on the spirit, and then they're happy for a while, and then they go right back to being depressed or being angry or being agitated. And then you help them again, and then they're good for a while, and then they come back, and again, depressed, angry, agitated. Already you're seeing two extremes. Someone very happy, someone very joyous, someone very carefree, and life is going well for them, and then, boom, it turns. Life is chaotic, they're depressed, they don't know how to deal with things. This already is a sign of maybe the person has some issues going on with bipolar disorder. And you just simply ask them, have you ever thought about speaking with a counselor? Have you ever thought about, and one of the easiest ones is psychotherapy. Does everybody know psychotherapy, talk therapy? And I hate telling people, have you ever gone to go seek psychotherapy? That sounds so scary, psychotherapy, Have you ever thought about talking to somebody, maybe a counselor? And just being honest, I'm not a counselor, and it seems like some of the issues that you're dealing with aren't very easily handled on the spiritual side of things, they might be something that you need to work with within your life. Maybe you might need a life coach. Maybe you might need a licensed professional to talk you through some of these things. You're being honest. You're being honest with that person, you know? And if you know a good doctor, if you know a good psychotherapist, if you know a good psychologist or psychiatrist, refer that person over. There are of course some issues when we get into billing and finances, right? We know that there are people who are, some may be pro bono, some may want the monies, some people have insurance, some people don't have insurance. Be aware of those people in your community. I can tell you right now, 4 doctors who I refer to at a free clinic here in Houston, okay? But I will also ask people, do you have insurance? Oh yes, I have Blue Cross Blue Shield. Have you ever looked into your insurance to see what doctors are in your plan? No, I never have. Why don't you do that tonight? Why don't you go home and look at your Blue Cross Blue Shield and figure out what doctors are in your plan and see if it's affordable for you to see that person. And you'll be surprised how many people go, oh, yeah, that's a good idea. You do that with people, okay? So again, to go back on George's question, if it might be something that it has to deal with mental health, refer it to a mental health specialist. We are not doctors dealing with mental health. We are doctors dealing with spiritual health, okay? We know our lines, we know our lanes, we know our scope of practice. Again, what kind of doctors are we, Frank?
Spiritual doctors first, brain surgeons second. Sorry, we're spiritual doctors.
We're spiritual doctors. Is it a crime to admit that you're not a mental health specialist, that you're not a counselor, and to tell that person they might need to seek mental health treatment or speak to a mental health specialist? Is it a crime? No. So, did I answer your question, George? Anybody else have a question? No? Okay. So, chapter 6. I'm going to read chapter 6 to you guys. Very, very short. And this is going to lead into your assignment for the week. Again, your assignment will also have to deal with the points that we pulled out of the basic rules. Okay, so keep that on hand too. I'm going to read through this. Listen to what I say. Chapter 6 is on not talking. And that's one of the things that we're going to work on this week. Okay? On not talking. Let's heed the psalmist's wisdom. I said, I'm committed to watch my words so I don't sin with my tongue. I've sealed my lips. I was silent and was humbled. I held my peace and didn't even speak good words. Psalms 39, 1 through 2. So there are times when even a good word, a true word, is best left unsaid. If silence is sometimes better than good words, then we ought all the more to avoid complaining and the ruin that comes with it. As a matter of fact, silence is so important to our formation in community that the teacher shouldn't invite even the mature disciple to speak too often, no matter how insightful or well-intentioned her comment may be. For Proverbs tells us, in a flood of words you will drown in sin. That's Proverbs 10:19. And again, the tongue holds the key to life and death. Proverbs 18:21. When it's time to learn the way that our Lord has shown us, When it's time to learn the way that our Lord has shown us, talking is the teacher's job. The job of the disciple is to keep silence and to listen. I'm going to stop here and explain something to you guys. When it's time to learn the way that our Lord has shown us, talking is the teacher's job. The job of the disciple is to keep silence and to listen. We have, as listeners, something to learn from the person who is coming to get advice from us, from the person who needs someone to listen to them. They become the teacher, you become the disciple. You're going to learn something from that person as they're talking, okay? Moving forward. The same also applies when any member makes a request of the community and its leadership, okay? Again, the same also applies when any member makes a request of the community and its leadership. He should watch his words and speak with all humility and respectful submission. In no situation should any member ever use vulgar words or engage in gossip. Even senseless talk that aims only to get a laugh out of others must be avoided. This is very serious and conservative in that line. The default for a disciple is silence. When we stop talking, we become better listeners. Okay? So, on not talking, let's talk about this a little bit so we can get into our assignment. Okay? I want you to focus on the how many of you got this book, by the way? Or how many of you have downloaded it? George? Okay. So in the middle paragraph of this paraphrase, it says, silence is so important to our formation in community that the teacher shouldn't invite the mature disciple to speak too often, no matter how insightful or well-intentioned their comment may be. For Proverbs tells us, in a flood of words you will drown in sin. Okay? As teachers, we have to... I'm going to take this class for example. Okay? Many of you here are very skilled. Many of you here have a lot of knowledge, and that's very wonderful. And I'll call on some of you from time to time to say things. But from time to time, I won't call on you. Some classes I may not call on George, right? Sometimes I may call on Linnell more than George. Now, to speak honestly, George is a little more experienced than Linnell. Okay? If I allow George to speak too often, he may be very intimidating to Linnell, making him retreat a little more. A good teacher will allow the inexperienced to speak because they will speak on what they know and know more. So, if you're called to speak, say what you know and leave it at that. Don't make it long-winded. When you make it long-winded, then you fall prey to arrogance and pride. Okay? Let the teacher be the arrogant and prideful one. No? Frank's just shaking his head. That was a punch at myself. So what I want you guys to do this week is challenge yourselves to listen more and speak less. Find yourself listening to conversation. Find yourself not adding your 2 cents into group conversation. Now, going back to what we pulled out. When my computer restarted, I lost what I highlighted. So I'm going to need some help from you guys. Roxana, would you would you point out the first one that I highlighted for you guys?
Help those in trouble.
Help those in trouble. Okay? And that is listening, right? I want you guys to document this in your magical identities. This is not something that we're going to share with each other. This is something that you're going to share with yourself. Help those in trouble. Write that down. And then underneath it, write, who am I listening to? Who am I helping? Underneath that should fall comfort the sad. I believe that's the next one that I gave you guys, right? Comfort the sad. You know, who is sad? Do not avoid those who need love. Are you listening to someone? Are you giving people their time? Did I give you make promises you can keep after that? What's the next one after do not avoid those who need love?
Endure persecution for the sake of justice.
Endure persecution for the sake of justice. This one goes hand in hand. Guys, if I can tell you guys the week that I had with endure persecution for the sake of justice. Jeez, and I had a weak moment this week. Endure persecution for the sake of justice. Yes, speak up. But again, as we just read in chapter 6, silence is sometimes better than good words, when we ought all the more to avoid complaining and the ruin that comes with it. I did fall privy to that. This week, as you guys know, last week, I had a little interview with Houston Press, and it was in regards to what the mayor had said and the city's declaration in regards to ending homelessness amongst veterans. And I spoke freely about it. And have I felt the endure persecution for the sake of justice last week and this week greatly. And when I think about it, in all honesty, had I not said anything, I could have continued to move forward with doing good works. I could have continued to move forward with helping the people that I help. So again, silence is sometimes better than good words. Think about that. There is a duality there. I want you to write that underneath, endure persecution for the sake of justice. Okay? Endure persecution for the sake of justice. Psalms 39, 1 through 2. I am committed to watch my words so I don't sin with my tongue. I've sealed my lips. I was silent and was humbled. I held my peace and didn't even speak good words. Sometimes we want to say the truth. Sometimes we want to speak out. Sometimes we want to give that advice to the person that we're listening to. Sometimes we want to say something. And sometimes we just need to zip it. Sometimes we just need to be quiet. George, please. Go ahead.
Old saying that I recall, which is very simple. It says, better to be silent and thought of as a fool than to speak and remove all doubt.
Yes, absolutely. So, one of the things that I do want you guys to work on this week is holding your tongue. Hold your personal opinion. Hold your thoughts. It's going to hold your thoughts. Hold your personal opinions. It's going to be a challenge, especially because all of us in this class, we are very vocal. We are very independent and we want people to know our opinions. We feel that we are right. We feel that we have the right answer. And we feel that what we say is important. So this week we are going to work on not sharing those things, on not speaking, on not giving our opinion. Do it with yourselves. Do it with each other. Okay? I'm going to give you 2 chapters to read this week. Chapter 7 is on humility. And chapter 8, very, very short, like a paragraph long, is on rising early for prayers. That's going to get us into our assignment for the next week. And you guys are going to develop a schedule. But I want you to work on the ones that I gave you. Endure, let me see, one more. Do not complain or speak poorly of others. Was that the next one, Roxanne? Don't complain or speak poorly of others. Watch what you're saying. Are you complaining too much? Are you nagging? Are you bickering? Are you this? Don't do that. Try very hard not to do that. And try very hard not to speak poorly of other people. And it may not just be that, speaking poorly of others could be, me talking mess about George. Oh, George is annoying. Oh, George is a horrible person. Oh, George this. George is just looking around. But you know what? Speaking poorly of others can also be making fun of people we don't know. And in this may be true in other communities, but in my community, as far as the gay community, this happens a lot. My people talk a lot of mess about, I know she did not wear those pants. She cannot fit in that shirt. That shirt is too small for them. That color is this and that shade, and he wore those heels. And I always tell those people, and what are you wearing? How do you think you look, right? But sometimes we do that. We do that. We don't mean to, but we'll say it. You can say it in silence too when no one else hears, but you hear and our spirits hear. You can be driving in your car, going to work, or on the bus, or something, and you see a passerby and you go, ooh, I know she did not wear that. Right? I've done it myself. Ooh, girl. Ooh, my goodness. Oh, Lord. Even try to stay away from those thoughts this week, okay? In speaking poorly of others. Let others be who they are. Let others wear what they want to wear. Let others do their hair however they want to do their hair or their makeup. The best example I can give you, does everybody remember Mimi Bobek? No? Oh gosh. Do you guys remember the Drew Carey show? George says, oh, Mimi Bobek with the bright colors and the makeup and everything and stuff like that, right? As people, one of the first things we do when we see Mimi Bobek, who's a character on TV, is we go, whoa, right? Whoa, that's a lot, the makeup and the dress and all of this stuff. But let that person be. Don't worry about that person. This is material stuff. It's not stuff that we need to be focused on. So try to work on that this week, speaking poorly of others, okay? Speak carefully. That should be the next one. Is that the next one, Roxanne? Speak carefully?
Yes, speak carefully.
Okay. Speak carefully. Again, we were talking about not being too hasty in giving advice, not being too hasty in going into something with an answer. Speak very carefully, okay? Think about what you're going to say. Your 4-way test is a great way to speak carefully on what you're going to say. Is it beneficial to all concerned? Will it build better friendships and goodwill? Is it the truth, right? Listen to wisdom should be the next one. Listen to wisdom. Again, that goes with not speaking in haste. Listen to your inner wisdom. Listen to your spirit. We can only listen when we're silent, okay? Respect the wise. Is that our next one? Respect the wise? Great. Respect the wise. No, what's the other one, Roxanne?
Pray for your enemies.
Okay. So let me go back just a little bit to respect the wise. If I'm reading this one, I'm going to go on ahead that the Spirit is speaking to me, because this is what I'm going to tell you about respect the wise. Respect the wise is when we practice silence, we don't chime in, right? Maybe Frank is saying something and I don't necessarily agree with what he's saying. So I'm not going to embarrass Frank and call him out in all of you here. That would discredit him, it would humiliate him, and it would instill feelings in him that are negative feelings. Instead, I would respect my friend and sidebar with him and have private conversation. Frank, I didn't agree with what you said. Here's why. Have an intelligent conversation with your elders. Respect the wise is also your spirit. Respect what your spirits are trying to tell you. Your spirit is telling you to stay silent. You'll stay silent. Your spirit is trying to tell you to speak. Speak. Work on that this week. Respecting the wise. Respecting your leadership. Okay? And praying for your enemies. I want you to get in the habit of praying for your enemies, because this will get into our assignment for next week. Because on Chapter 8, you will get into rising early for prayer. How many people know the Serenity Prayer? Many of us here know the Serenity Prayer, right? Well, when we rise early in the morning, I'm not going to get too much into next week's assignment. I want to give it to you guys. It's going to help you guys a lot. But begin to personally write in your journal. Maybe enemies is a strong word. Maybe people you dislike. Maybe people who are your adversary. Write them down. People who did you wrong. People who slapped you in the face. And pray for them. These are the rules, the basic rules that I want you to work on. These are the basic rules that we will work on for the duration of this class. Now, we only have 3 weeks left. July 3rd, yes, July 3rd comes very quickly, okay? So, while it is the end of our classes, it will go into the group assignment that I told you you all will be working on. We'll take 2 months break. We'll take about 3 months break, and then we'll come back to do an introduction for the next sessions. Okay? So, I want you to... We'll take about a 3-month break, and then we'll come back to do introductions for the next sessions. That's where we're going to begin to getting into our meat with learning now more of the magical stuff versus the ethical stuff. Okay? So, the last part of your assignment again, pray for your enemies, make that list in your magical identity journal on who it is that has done you wrong, who you feel is an adversary, so that you can begin praying for them. Okay? Does anybody have any questions? No? Okay. I I want to tell you guys that you have all done very well in this course. I'm very proud of all of you. Give me a second, I'm going to stop the recording.